All righty. Wait, and okay. All right, we're getting started. Starting to see some people come in. We'll give it a maybe 2 more minutes and start at 11:05 Eastern for everyone who's on the other coast. Well, while people come in, would love to have everybody drop in the chat where they're based, where they are dialing in from. Houston, Texas. Okay. What else we got? Toronto. Okay, we're global now. Love that. Atlanta, Georgia. Okay. Raleigh. Yes. Okay, the South is here. New York. All right, that's me too. New York. I see. Lagos, Nigeria. Love it.
Mhm.
All right, we got a few. I'm dialing in from Brooklyn, New York. So I see a few New York people in here. Grace, where are you dialing in from?
I am just outside of Atlanta, so like 40
Okay,
minutes away from Atlanta.
nice. Natalie, what about you?
I'm in Brooklyn too.
Ah, okay. We're neighbors.
We're
Well, no,
neighbors. I'm in
Brooklyn's a little
Brooklyn.
big. Yeah, Brooklyn's a little big, but we borough neighbors. All right, and I see Botswana here. Okay. All righty. So just going to wait a few more seconds and then we can get started. Appreciate everyone for coming. All righty. All right, so let's get started. So hi, everyone. My name is Amir Rasul. I'm the founder and CEO of Folklore. We are a membership community that's focused on providing consumer goods brands with the opportunities to learn, connect, and sell and thrive as a community. Our mission is to provide global brands with technology, education, and community resources to grow their brands while also enabling retailers and service providers to collaborate better with brands. So building a loyal customer base is, essential for any brand success, especially for small emerging brands that don't have, large marketing budgets. So today we're fortunate to be joined by two incredible people who have mastered the art of community building. We have Natalie and we have Grace, who are at Topicals, the amazing beauty brand. Shout out to Alameda, my homie, that is taking over the world. And it's really been built from community and like a very much like a grassroots community movement has propelled them to what they are today. And so I'm going to allow them to do intros, but just to set the stage, we are going to allow a Q&A session at the end. So everyone use that Q&A box to everyone use that Q&A box to send your questions as they come into your mind, and then we will make sure to answer them at the end. And that is all of the little housekeeping things that I have. And yes, we're going to just dive into what it takes to be able to build customer loyalty through community building. So we'd love for you both to do an introduction.
Sure, I'll kick it off. I'm Natalie. Hi, everybody. Welcome. I am our Director of Community and Social Impact here at Topicals. That encompasses a lot. And Grace Sophia's on my team, and we work on our ambassador program, our loyalty program. It extends into, how we have events virtually and IRL. So it's a big thing we do here at Topicals, and it's been amazing to help it grow. Before that, I was at Google as well, overseeing a community program, and previously worked at nonprofits in Harlem and New York and the surrounding area.
Amazing. My name is Grace Sophia. I'm our community manager. Like Natalie mentioned, we work very closely together and have just built this amazing community. And I'm super excited just to be here. From my background, I honestly did a lot of things, dabbled in everything. I was a graphic designer at one point, managed influencers at another point, and have also had a lot of experience as a brand ambassador for all the brands you can think of. So I've gotten just that perspective also as a consumer.
Amazing. Well, glad to have you both with us. And let's just jump into some questions. First thing, what is topicals and what is that exactly does it mean to be a community director or manager there?
Yeah, so Topicals is a skincare brand, and we really focus on treatment products and focus from an angle of looking at skin of color and mental health. So that's really a big part of our role is like, how do we build community around people who have, visible skin conditions, and how do we have conversations around mental health? So we always look at all of what we do, which I'm sure we'll dive into from that lens of, how do we create support systems for our community and really cultivate a space where people who identify can find community with us.
Yeah, and I would add to your question about like what exactly do the both of us do within this role. Again, like a multitude of things. We touch growth, marketing, social, and then obviously community within like our different platforms. TYB, which is a platform that we use primarily for our community building. So a little bit of everything within this role.
Truly.
Gotcha. Okay. And so could you just describe what does it mean to build a brand community and like why is that important nowadays to build a community for your brand?
You want to kick it off, Gracia?
Yeah, I think we're entering like a different era within the industry where community building is a core pillar of any brand, and like a growth lever, a social lever, like again, you name it, it really touches everything. And I think it's really important because especially coming out of like the pandemic, people just want to be seen, heard, have a space where they can connect with other people. And we're seeing this pop up everywhere, right? Like there's run clubs and there's virtual trivia games and there's all these different things because people just want to be able to connect with each other. And so I think it's super important as a brand to make sure that you're creating that space for people to again feel seen, heard, and not just pushing or selling a product on them, but allowing them that space to connect within that brand.
Yeah, and I'll add to that. I think like especially as our brand, doesn't have physical spaces and stores, and a lot of brands don't. It's like, how do you build that connection to your community, right? Like you go into a store and often it'll have like a scent, right? You're greeted by somebody, you have a feeling like that, all those things that create that connection between the customer and the brand. Like we're kind of doing that in this virtual space. So I think at its core, like if you think we have two components really of like an ambassador program, which is like our brand fans, like our super fans, like they know topicals down. And then our loyalty, right? It's like, how do you have that long-term relationship, that constant connection, that engagement, and that emotional feeling that I was talking about that you've experienced? Like we're basically responsible for cultivating that as a core tenet of our brand, like Grace was saying.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I'm wondering, you mentioned those two core pillars for the ambassadors. Were those ambassadors that just came across naturally, like they started, buying your products and then you built relationships from there? Was it also part of those ambassadors or people you reached out to from like an influencer perspective?
Yeah, well, Gracie and I both started at the same time, so we have like a similar perspective on where it was, and we both joined about 2 years ago. And there was definitely like that feeling, right? Like Topicals is like, very like that girl, right? Like there's a community that exists, and there was a community, but it really took, I think, creating the infrastructure that we've taken to have like a lot of that inbound. So I think like really building out a community, both like from a like copy brand, like how you're communicating it, but also literally having the infrastructure to scale it allowed for the growth that we have had.
Mhm. And so what was some of that infrastructure that, you came in and built?
Yeah, from originally we were on a platform called Geneva, and it was a like chat platform. So kind of think about like a Slack, but fun, or like a Discord, but cooler.
Mhm.
And really just like literally creating the virtual space for people to join in like an inbound way, connecting it to our website. So there was a way for people to find us, like some of those like structural infrastructure pieces. And then, as Grace Sophia mentioned, we're also on this platform called TYB, which is where we're able to kind of transform passive engagement into something that's measurable, something that connects to our business goals. So I think those kind of three pieces really allowed us to grow and take meaning, one, to the customer, but also internally on the team. It was how do we make sense of this new idea of community within like a traditional marketing team? And all of those pieces helped us to be able to communicate that internally as well, which allowed us to connect more to everything going on with the team, every rollout, every launch, every, moment that we have. It's now community is not separate, community is now really integrated.
Got it. And so what I'm wondering is you both came into the role 2 years ago. How did you go about identifying like the core values and what would resonate with your target audience for you to then go and build out the strategy that you've built?
You want to start, Gatsby?
Yeah. I would say something that's really important to us is just constantly polling our community. And so I feel like we're constantly in touch with our ambassadors, our loyalists. Like there's never like a disconnect where we're like, I don't know what they would like, or I don't know what they're highly engaging with, right? Like we're always talking to them, we're always in the chats with them. We host monthly virtual calls where they can voice questions or voice their opinions. We have a hype squad, which is a smaller group of ambassadors that, again, we also speak to on a monthly basis. So we are constantly getting that feedback loop. And I think that's like the most important part of this whole thing is we never build without having asked them beforehand, or we never build without having gotten their input beforehand. We always, again, are in constant communication with them.
Gotcha. And
Yeah.
what are some of oh, I'm
No,
sorry,
go ahead.
Natalie. I was just going to ask, like, what are some of like the questions and the things that you will ask them so that or is it something that's targeted to like you already have some ideas and you're trying to run it by them, or is it something where you're just kind of open to just hearing from them?
Yeah, we have all types of polling. We have done product development. Just recently, we did a virtual event where we gave them sample options of a new product that we're launching. They were able to vote. We got that again feedback live. So we can do product development. We've done things like help us build a playlist, and then we post it on our stories. We ask them, what city do you want us to come to before we like run an event series? So it can be something as small again as literally tell us what your favorite artist is and what your song is, and we'll incorporate that into our strategy, or something as big as a product and literally tell us what do you want to see from it, what scent, what color, things like that.
And do you use the channels that you mentioned to do those polls, or sometimes is it just like just sending out an email and getting on a call?
Yeah, so primarily it is on 2IB, so that platform that we mentioned, but we've also done email surveys and just surveys like internally
Yeah.
with our smaller
We're on
ambassadors.
social. Sometimes we'll do polls and kind of pull from there as well.
Okay, yeah, I think social polls are really good, especially, for we've started doing some polls. We even did it like in a WhatsApp. And I was like, oh wow, these actually it's just a quick, it's something quicker than, doing a full customer discovery interviews and all that good stuff. But and I know Natalie, you had something to say about this question.
Yeah, I think also because you're kind of asking like where it all started. I mean, thinking about some of the folks on this call too, I do think like we were lucky, right? Because we inherited a brand that had like such a clear community driven message. But I think like, and anybody like trying to build a community, I would, before you even get into these things, it's like, who is the person, right? Like, who is the type of person? Like I keep referring like Topicals is that girl, right? Because like Topicals like has that essence and that feeling. I think also, the fact that it was from its beginning tied to mental health, and the fact that it had to do with, having visible skin conditions. So it's like always targeting and like speaking to somebody, even though like we're always pulling it back to and being like our products for anybody with skin. Sometimes you still have to narrow it in and like speak to somebody specifically. And that's like the base from which you can build your community.
Gotcha. And so did you kind of have that like number one customer profile that you really built your community around, but then you also have like those other customer profiles as well that you've tried to include in that?
Yeah, I mean, we want to be incredibly inclusive, and like that's always our goal. But I think like I'm just thinking about like what are the base, the foundation of a community. I think it still does need to have a point of view and a perspective that somebody can receive and like identify with.
Yeah. And like speaking to like customer profile and having like that target customer, what are some of the tips that you would advise some of the brands on this call? Like what needs to be in that customer profile? Like if you have like one page, what's the information that they need to know about their customer?
Yeah, that's interesting. We're actually doing a lot of looking at profiling right now. Um, I mean, I think it has to do with the product, so it's really hard to say. But yeah, I think it comes from your product. So it's like who is this meant for? What type of person? Like just simple demographic information, like age range, how much do they make? Like what based and
Okay.
that's based on like what you're pricing it at, like all of those sorts of things that you go into like tweaking and formulating what
Mhm.
your product is. I think informs the strategy. As well as I think from, a founder perspective, right? Like Alameda, a lot of Alameda is topicals. So I
Mhm.
think injecting like you are and like what your motivations are and where all that comes from helps to create the identity of the brand, and then that therefore informs what the community would look like.
Gotcha. Okay. And we know user-generated content plays a huge role in your marketing strategy. How do you encourage your community to share that content?
I'll let Grace Via start this one.
Yeah, I think that's a tricky one. Because I think we've seen like this boom of the micro creator group, right? Like anyone and everyone can be an influencer nowadays. Um, so I think it's great in the sense that it's opened the doors to so many different types of creators, and there's a lot more diversity and inclusivity within the space. But I think there's also almost like higher expectations from creators, right? Like
Mhm.
not everyone wants a gifted collab anymore. Not everyone wants unpaid collaborations. So I think it's just making sure that you are rewarding them when they are creating the content and constantly engaging with them. So if it's on socials, making sure you're liking, you're commenting,
Mhm.
again, that like sense of reward, like you're showing them that what they did was something that you loved and that you want them to continue to do. And
Mhm.
then on the TYB side, we have this, again, it's a platform. You can earn coins for every almost like challenge that you do. And so we have UGC challenges on TYB where they can earn coins that they can then use as discounts on their on products and purchases. And
Mhm.
so again, making sure that they feel that reward loop. So it's not just like they're posting content and we're getting something out of it, but they're not, making sure that they feel
Mhm.
that like reciprocal relationship.
Okay, yeah. And I like the idea about like the loyalty rewards. Can you talk a little bit more about, how you have set up like your loyalty program?
Yeah, so on 2IB, this platform, first of all, they earn cash back for every purchase they make. And
Mhm.
so that's like the main piece. And then the other piece is we post challenges. And so challenges can be a UGC challenge, it can be a poll, it can be just literally like a text response.
Mhm.
And they can also earn coins off of those challenges. And so that is now the primary way we have our loyalty program set up. Before we
Mhm.
had it on Yotpo, which I think is like the industry standard for a lot of brands. But with
Mhm.
TYB, you also just get a more, again, personal interaction with them. It's not
Mhm.
just make a purchase and you got coins. Now we can
Mhm.
actually ask questions, they can interact, they can be in the chat. So
Mhm.
it feels a lot more personal.
And so is that any customer of topicals would have access to these?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so
Nice. Okay.
any member can join TYB. We usually post it on our socials. They can
Mhm.
come from our email list, and again, like top purchases just from our DTC. So anyone can
Mhm.
join.
Okay, nice. And so could you talk about some of the challenges that you faced in, building community and how you were able to address them?
Yeah, I can kick this off. I mean, I think originally one of our biggest challenges I mentioned was like, how do we make sense of this internally, right? Like, I think we've been so successful because we took the time to like do that internal education with the team. So really figuring out like what pathways, like how does community connect to our, larger business goals, and how does this affect our creative team? Like how does what does this mean for our social team? How do we impact product marketing? And it means something different for each team that we work with, but really spending that time to do that, like front ending it, like literally when we first started, really has ensured that it was a challenge to begin with. So figuring out what that means, because we're also figuring out what it means. Community itself is also this like new kind of amorphous idea and concept. But you know, having some tools like we mentioned, like T by B helps to like, you know, root us in, you know, numbers and metrics and things that we can really lean on. But figuring out those things, spending that time to do that, spending our time educating the team and really like spending on our end, right? Like weekly meetings, bi-weekly meetings, which with each team has allowed us to move past those challenges and into a place where this is like, oh, this is standard practice for us. This is how we operate. This is when we're rolling out a product. Like this is a core part instead of every time being like, hey, like, how do you want us to work? How do you want, how, these are ideas. Like, do you like them? Like now it's like, this is what we do because it's kind of been proven. I think that's one of the things. I think events has been something that has been amazing for us, but is constantly something that we are figuring out what works. You know, events themselves are expensive. Like it's hard to have them in different places. Like it's obviously easy for us to have them on the coast, right? Like LA and New York. But how do we tap into people that are in different geographic areas and make them feel seen and heard? You know, how does virtual events play into that? So how do we have enough space, right? Like if you have an event, there's only so much room if you're having a cooking class or a pickleball class. Like, so, and who gets to attend and do our influencers get to attend? So those are some of the things we are really like in real time always grappling with, but they're always I always see things as opportunities, but that are challenges that we, you know, deal with.
Yeah, and speaking of events, could you provide some advice for smaller brands that don't have like a big budget and they're mostly, you know, direct to consumer e-commerce? What's some strategies or approach to events that they could employ to help with their community building?
Yeah, I think like Sophia mentioned earlier, like there's run clubs, right? There's like we've done field days, there's like meditation, yoga. I think you can collaborate with places like like yoga studios or, you know, any like store front that like wants to bring in business. I think I've seen events. I've seen like a jewelry brand do an event at a coffee shop. Like, so I think like collaborating with spaces that are just trying to also get customers is a really good way to do it. So you can kind of bring down the cost. And also just, you know, especially during the summer, we have a event series called Summer Camp, but it also makes it easier. We've done hot girl walks, right? Like along the coast in LA. So that costs very little money. So I think it's really just about bringing people together that matters and like creating those fun moments with people IRL that you can then amplify on your social.
Yeah,
Oh,
and
I
I
love
would say
that.
you can also, oh, sorry, Amir. I was gonna say you can also do virtual events, right? If IRL events is way out of budget, just doing like Natalie mentioned, we've done virtual meditations, virtual sound bath sessions. We've done like journaling workshops virtually as well. So you don't necessarily need a space if that's out of your budget. You can also just do it as a virtual event.
And do you have any examples of virtual events that you've hosted that have been pretty successful?
Yeah, so we for Valentine's Day we did a virtual like painting class. We've also done the meditation class, or the ones that we do most often, and then we've also just hosted like chatting sessions where we just come in and talk with the ambassadors. We even did a baking class, I think last
Right.
December.
Mhm.
We sent them the recipe beforehand, and then we just all got together and baked. But honestly, you'll see like most of the time it just turns into like girls chatting with each other, talking about the shows we like. So it's not necessarily, again, it doesn't have to be like a full built up thing. It can just be talking and sitting down with your customers.
Nice. Okay. And
I'll add one more thing to that.
yep.
Well, one, I'll say Grace, the girls just love to talk with Grace Sophia. She is the prize. If Grace Sophia is on there, they are joining. And also actually Alameda too. So something we have like done a lot of is having our product previews with our product marketing team. And that is like giving our ambassadors and our community members like an inside look into the products. And so we'll often like have a llama day, both with our just our ambassadors, but then also we've started to do it more with our loyalty program as well, like so they can ask questions in real time, get that insight pre-launch or like on launch day.
I love that. And then also, and Tiana, I'm not sure if the Q&A chat is open, but would love to get some questions in here so we can have a few that we can answer towards the end. So as you think about questions, everyone, this is your time to just drop them in. And Tiana, if you can open up the Q&A chat so they can do that. So how do you promote your events to ensure good attendance? And like you had mentioned, like how do you decide, which members of your community will be open to, like if it's a smaller brand, should they be looking at, just their top customers? Should they be looking at like maybe the person that's only purchased once? Like how would you suggest they approach it?
Yeah, I think it's all testing. I'm very much like in a testing and learning phase. But we approach it in different ways. So sometimes we always open it up, first of all,
Mhm.
to like the broader community. It just depends on the event. Sometimes we'll do it just within TYB. Sometimes we'll open it up just to our insiders, our ambassadors. Sometimes it'll make it onto social. It really depends on the event. It depends on how many spots we have available. It depends on how much we're also promoting it, and like we want to have like that through line of the story of like it being posted to the, getting the photographer, having a photographer and taking the pictures. So it depends also on a whole bunch of things. Sometimes we do leave particular spots to our top of our leaderboard, our most engaged folks. Sometimes we don't, and we just say like it's first come, first serve. So I don't even think we have like a rule of thumb on it. It just kind of depends on what's going on. If we want to, even if, we feel like we need to kind of boost engagement, then we'll say like in a month from now, we'll have a special event, like people at the top of the leaderboard. So then we're kind of over that month, kind of incentivizing them to participate more, knowing that there's this, kind of breadcrumbing towards that. So I don't think we have like a standard of practice. It just depends on what our needs are at the time.
Okay. And now just going into some advice that you can give to brands that are just starting to build their community. So it might be a brand they launched 2 years ago, so they have about like 2 years of sales. They have a few like maybe 10 or 12 customers that are doing really well, and then they have, some that maybe do once a quarter. Like what would you say would be the starting point of like, okay, I want to build a community. This is the strategy, these are the steps.
Yeah, I think like formalizing the community is some, like I said from the beginning, really helped us, like making it a thing, making it unclear where people can join, whether you have like a broadcast channel or whether you do start a Slack or a Geneva. I think creating like the actual space as well as like clear its own like kind of sub branding. I forget what we call that, Grace, Sophia. How it have its own brand ID
Mhm.
within your brand for the community so that it just seems official, and so that it also just to like reduce friction into it. So like clear, easy ways to join and clear benefits of like what you'll get from joining and communicating those out, whether it be like early access to product, free gifting, if there is, access to events, or to if you have a founder that is like really cool and popular and like people want to be able to have like a, touch point with them, like whatever those things are, I think communicating what the benefits of the community are as well is a really good place to start.
Okay, Grace, you have anything to add?
No, I agree. I think just to like summarize what Natalie said, right? Like who they are, who we are, and then what they get out of the program.
Mhm.
Um, just so they, even if it's like you're gonna have a tier approach, right? We have a tiered approach. We have our ambassadors, our loyalists, and
Mhm.
even within that group, we have a subgroup called our experts, who are licensed dermatologists and estheticians.
Mhm.
So to Natalie's point, just making sure that you have it all laid out. Who is your core, or like the profile, right? Who's your core ambassador? Who is your core loyalist? And if you can find something like we did with our experts, where it's something that's so specific to our brand and so part of our core, then like adding that into the basis of your foundation too.
Got it. And so like as a smaller brand, if it's a small brand approaching this, they could be thinking, oh, well, I don't know if my customer is going to want me to annoy them and send them an email or do, how can a small brand kind of like get over that fear, or like what are some, or is that a fear that is actually a reality where it's like some people don't want to be bothered? Like how can they really go about building that community um with people that they really haven't, spoken to before, or that they not might not even know if they're open to it?
I think you need to bother your customer. I mean, just we can look at all of our email inboxes and see how many emails we have from Zara or whatever. So I think bothering your customer is a part of you're a market like is marketing maybe, but so I think you should actually look at it as like a pleasant surprise to your customer, right? We get it so many emails that are like sales and, you know, buy. So I think having a touch point that isn't that is like an unexpected and maybe refreshing you know, thing to hear from a brand. So I think, and then having like the actionable next steps of whether, you know, joining a community gives people something to do. People love something to do, and they really love like having input on the brand. Like Grace Sophia said, like we just had a live voting event for an upcoming product, which is something we've been wanting to do for a long time, but them being able to, you know, say what our next product is going to be is like our community's joy.
Yeah.
So I think like actually getting comfortable and familiar with your community will help you to grow.
Yeah. I also think it's okay to test it out. And I think
Mhm.
like that's part of building a community is almost like weeding out those who don't want to engage and those who do. Because I always say like I'd rather have intentional growth over just like anyone and everyone can come in.
Mhm.
So I think it's okay to test it out. Like send out those emails, send out
Mhm.
those invitations to an event. Like there through the testing and the weeding out, you'll find out who are those people that actually want to engage with you and then what they
Mhm.
actually want to do.
And what would be like that first email that sent that first touch point when it's like, okay, I've decided I want to build a community. I want to directly have this person engage with us, or I want to just learn more about them so I can build out the strategy. Who should it be coming from on the team? And like, what would you put in it?
Yeah, I think when we always have our big moments, we lean on Alama Day. So we've
Mhm.
done like, you know, letters from Alama Day, like honestly, like plain text
Mhm.
emails, right? Like without all the bells and whistles, like, hey, this is like from Alama Day, like that sort of thing. But like I said, like a welcome, like a launch
Mm.
within your launches. Like this is a launch that we are happening, and like here's how to join, and like this is what it is, like with this like brand ID, and like what's the name of your community? Like ours is our insiders or our spotty hottie. You'll see we have
Mhm.
now we've grown into have a spotty sphere, which
Mhm.
encompasses our insiders and our spotty hotties and our experts.
Mhm.
Um, so really like building a world around this community and then having like a join, become a part of this with the clear like benefits of joining is like what the email is or the launches.
So it's kind of like in a way, like it's another product that you are launching. Like the community itself is a product that you have to market.
Yeah,
Mhm.
100%.
Okay. And how do you balance personalization with scalability in customer interactions? Because you have a huge community. How do you really make, even the smallest customer still feel seen and heard?
Go progress. Yeah.
Yeah. Not I feel like we sound like TYB like spokespeople,
I was
but
saying that y'all might need to get paid.
no, literally. But I'd say one, so again, the tiered approach that we have our smaller ambassador group where they definitely feel a bit more exclusive and they have a different, more hands-on experience within the community program. Then we have our entire spotty hotties. So to Natalie's point, like the entire spotty sphere. And even though that's a larger group, it's over 20,000 people. I think because of TYB, it still feels like a personal experience because again, our chats are open. So if they wanted to talk to any of us, they literally can just go in the chat and talk to us. Alama
Mhm.
days in the chats, sometimes for launches. So it doesn't
Mhm.
feel like it's something that's like unattainable or something that,
Mhm.
it's like people behind screens and then there's no one there. It
Mhm.
really feels like a personal experience and they can interact with us constantly. So if it's with challenges, they
Mhm.
can write the challenge. We literally see it, have to approve it. They'll get coins for the interaction. So
Mhm.
it feels really, really personal.
Yeah. And I'll add, I mean, I think that Grace Sophia as a community manager and like the infrastructure we set up, she mentioned we have like a hype squad. It's like our most engaged community members apply to be a part of our hype squads. We have like extra people who are like our moderators and communicators like join, so we have so many like real people in there like talking, chatting. Like our chat is like very, very active. It's like there are friends that are being made across the world talking about their date they had that night and, what should they make for dinner? Like that they got this like brand deal or so really making it like a real space as much as possible, like of having that emotional feeling of that connection, like within your space and investing in having, the time it takes, whether like it'd be an intern if you're a small team or somebody who, speaks the language of your community, depending on who that is like really important.
Okay. And how do you use social media for this? Because I know you have, the TYE,
Yeah.
yeah. So, and I know that's, its
Huh.
own separate platform, but you have a really great, social following. How would you suggest that brands use social media, whether it be Instagram, TikTok, to also fuel that community?
Yeah, I think without like an external platform, like it's great to have an external platform. I will say that to have like an owned space, but I also think of like these channels as like taking what happens out of your comment section and
Mhm.
like making it a real conversation. Like I don't think you can like build community in a comment section. So like what can you do besides like having another channel is maybe having a broadcast room or I don't have well, broadcast is still like one directional, but like a chat. I think you can
Mhm.
have like a chat like with an Instagram, like somewhere where you really can communicate. We were talked a lot actually about the refi community trip
Mhm.
that they just had, but having those touch points I think is really important, but also like at least fun like having a chat room I think is like
Mhm.
the core of a community, like an ongoing platform that isn't like one directional, like an email or an Instagram post. Like it has to be something that's two-way.
Okay. Have you employed lives? Is that something that is like doing live chats and things like that?
Yeah, we've done, as I said, with like our product previews, like we do hop on Zoom and like have like calls, or we'll have like Alama Day and chat, like talking. We have done, I don't know if you were talking about like TikTok lives. We've had a TikTok
Yeah.
lives.
Yep. Mhm.
Yeah, that's something we're actually going to be doing a lot more of is TikTok lives. I think they are fun and people really like to engage with them there. So we're very open and as we've all said, like, testing what works.
Okay. Well, I think I'm done with my questions because we already talked a little bit about loyalty. So I will now turn it over to the audience, and I see some great questions coming in now. So let me see. Um, So I have someone who asks, Muna, sorry if I mispronounce your name, what makes an event successful for you? And how do you measure success as you scale up events? Y'all do incredible in real life experiences.
Hi, Muna. First of all, I know Muna. I'm looking for the question. Is it in the chat?
It's
Or
in the
read
webinar chat.
Q&A?
It's not in the Q&A. I just took it from
Oh,
there
I saw
first.
it. What it makes events successful, I think it changes, but I think like fundamentally, like we are like community girls for real. So if the girls are having fun and like, everyone's having a nice time, if it feels real and if we, it feels like intentional and like then I think that is success A. If we're talking about from a business standpoint, I think there's a couple of things. Like for us, like we really want to make sure that the event makes it to social and it's like fully covered so that the
Mhm.
messaging behind why we're having the event is captured, right? Like being the type of brand that has events and creates these spaces. Besides just creating the space, it's also like amplifying that. So making sure that the content that was made is good and that it fits our, aesthetic, that we have the photographer that we needed, whatever those pieces are, is success as well. And then now like look being more intentional about the content that does come out of it, right? Like so sometimes we do have to figure out who are we inviting and making sure that there are, our community is made up of a lot of content creators, but still at times you might have to brief them, you might have to leave a couple spots for an influencer to make sure that like through not just our own owned platforms that the event is being amplified as well. Hey,
All
Sophia, what do
right.
you think?
Yeah, no, I agree. I would say for me, it's your first point, Natalie. If people are having fun and they feel like the space was a safe space and a space where they could like interact with other people, then I'm like, we did it. I feel like I've been to so many brand events where it's like a cocktail hour and it's like stiff and people aren't really interacting with each other and it doesn't feel that organic. And so again, when I see that people are chatting with each other, people are just having a good time, like you'll see that translate to their content, because if they're having a fun time, like they'll most likely post a video about it. If they made friends and they were chit-chatting, like they'll post it on their stories. So I think if people are having a good time, like you'll see that translate to the content, to everything else.
And so is it fair to say that a KPI, it's not just like, okay, revenue. We actually were able to tie back exactly, how much revenue we made off of an event. Is that something that is also a KPI set, or what
No,
would you
I
say?
think for us, like, no, I don't think revenue. I think like if we have an event like in a Sephora store, then that
Mm,
drives revenue. But this for us is like top of funnel, like brand awareness,
mm.
opportunities, and really speaking to like brand core tenets of being like really community driven. And then the types of events that we're having, speaking to like, something that, is like a tenet of topicals, not so much like KPI, but I do think like, impressions, things like that are not tied to, completely to like community events, but is something that we are aware of and like keep in the background of like outcomes of an event.
Okay, so there's a difference between like having like a shopping event versus having like a different type of like non-product focus uh event. Okay, that's definitely great to differentiate that. Let's see. Any tips on how to make your brand stand out? I have a handmade jewelry brand, and the market is certainly saturated. Everyone uses the same set of keywords and storytelling insights. It feels so difficult to stand out and have a refreshing presence. Any tips on this, please?
I feel like I've seen a bunch of founders honestly talk about how being a founder is like being a content creator. And I don't know how like you like to feel about that. I'm actually not a founder myself, but like I do think like, thinking of yourself in that way, or kind of being, that self-promotion, the personal brand building, but the self-amplification of the product. And we, from start to finish, right? Like all of that work that you're doing is a story. So taking the work that you're doing, taking the challenges that you have and the frustrations that you're experiencing, like there's a million people that can relate to that, whether they're a founder themselves or just going through something that they're doing or making. So that would
Yeah.
be, I guess, my recommendation.
I would say also finding a niche. And I know that's like a daunting like task, but I think part of topical success is what Natalie has said in the beginning, like we have always been a purpose-driven brand. And so mental health has always been a core pillar, community, like people know topicals for our mental health advocacy and the way we always show diverse skin tones. And so if there's something that you can do within that for your brand, finding something that's a core piece um, of your brand, if it's sustainability, if it's that you include different, I don't know, body types, and just finding something that sets you apart from, again, to your point, like there's a sea of sellers out here, but finding something that just, that purpose, something that's different to your brand.
Yeah, I agree with both points. I've always there have been founders who have told me stories about their brands just on calls. And I'm like, why doesn't anybody else know that? And it's not
Mhm.
just good enough to have it on your about page. Like there should be video on your page pinned to the top of your Instagram that, tells your story and watching. I've also found that people watching the process of having the products developed is also something that is really interesting. People like that story telling, especially if it's being made in a certain place where it's like, locally sourced X, Y, and Z. So yeah, I definitely agree. So hope that helps. What's next? We got a proud spotty hottie in the building that says, I love your trivia questions. Admittedly, I've chatted inside of the text before. Is there a person on the other side of those texts or is it AI?
No, it's our CX team. It's real, it's real people in there. But I love that. I love that you love the trivia. We'll actually share that back with our team.
Awesome. Okay. And we have Hi, y'all. Thank you for this amazing info. How can I specifically leverage my experience as my college BSU president leader to transition into community management roles within beauty or fashion sectors? Are there particular skills or strategies that have worked well for you specifically or others making a similar transition?
Yeah, I think it's a great time to get into community, honestly, like because it is so new. So it actually, I feel like I find that a lot of the roles are like very entry level. Like they're a community, there's a lot of community interns. Also, community teams need a lot of support, right? Like even us, we want to launch like a college ambassador program. So like it just takes a lot of infrastructure. So I think you're very ripe to get into it. But Grace Sophia and I have totally two different pathways into community. You know, I was working with nonprofits and I was doing community, but in a totally different sense. And I think that has helped inform like, you know, how I look at program development because I did develop programs, but like for totally different areas. But I think you can have like so many multiple ways into it. Honestly, if you're doing traditional marketing, if you're doing even like psychology, like I think there's so many different ways into community, but apply to roles and internships and like take on opportunities or like Grace Sophia, not that this is your in Ray, but like ambassadors, right? Like we have touch points with our ambassadors, some of our favorite ambassadors. We want to advocate to get roles in our team. Like that's a great way to make connections with brands and like get to know somebody at the company.
Yeah, I'll add to that because I think building your own community online before you even join someone else's, like once you do come to a brand, you'll already have people who support you for what you're doing. Like I think of myself when I joined Topicals, like I already knew a lot of these girls through other ambassador programs. So when I started talking to them, like it felt super natural, like, oh hey, Presley, like we've already been on a Zoom
Mhm.
for X brand. So nurture that community also um online, just as you as like a human and your own brand and your personal page. So when you do get those opportunities, it feels super natural and like an easy transition over.
Okay, love it. So my question relates to Grace Sophia and Natalie's roles at Topicals. Both of your successes genuinely inspire me. As a recent grad, I'm interested in entry-level roles within the Topicals community. How were you both able to get your career start? Any tips or advice?
Oh, is Natalie? I think you're muted, Natalie.
I don't even know what I just said, but I was just saying I love that you want to be at Topicals, and I'd encourage you to join, you know, the Spotty Hotties and like join our community. I think as we grow, like we'll be, you know, growing our team and looking for more folks and more roles, and so just kind of get plugged in with us, and we'll see what happens.
Yeah, and for tips, the same thing I said to the other question. I think start building that community just as you as a person, so that when you actually come and build a brand's community, you've had that experience. And then, like we mentioned, like community touches everything. You're a CX person, you're a social person, you can touch like marketing and design. So I'd say dabble in everything, like hone your skills and literally every set. Because when you do come into this role, you'll be able to use it and apply it in all the different ways.
All right, lovely. I'm curious to know how partnering with larger brands has impacted Topicals community growth. Have these collaborations helped in building community, and how do you approach these partnerships?
Mm, I don't think we've honestly had too many big partnerships. We had some like with our brand trips. And obviously, you know, like Sephora is one of our big partners, so not to say that they aren't, but I don't, yeah, I think topicals. I mean, I'm gonna give us some praise. I think we've done not just our team, but like the company has done the most job to be the type of brand that people whose community that people want to join. Um, I think it's always great when we, you know, we partner with some brands, but I think it's very much mutually beneficial in terms of who is getting connected with whom and who benefits from whom.
I will say we did a collaboration, and it was like a small collaboration with Bread on TYV. We did a giveaway, and we did see like a lot of that. I think it's also like our audiences are very alike, right? Like both brands are for women of color, by Black women, founded by Black women. Like there's a very similar audience, and we did see like membership crossover when we ran that giveaway. So if you can find a brand that like aligns with yours and a similar audience, I do think there's something cool there.
Great. And we have what I love about topicals is how diverse and how you're not afraid to shy away from that, from what people don't speak about, blemishes, rashes, spots, etc. Instead, pushing people to be proud of speaking about the skin issues. How key is authenticity to your community growth?
Yeah, I think it's everything. Yeah, it's great, to be a part of a brand that like you're not covering our skin, right? Like we are, celebrating it. So it's great to be able to lean into those things. And that's what we do. We really do lean in to, whatever it may be. I forget, honestly, I'm sorry, I forget half the question.
It's just the key to authenticity to your
Oh
community.
yeah. Yeah, I mean, yes, we 100% lean into authenticity in like every single way, whether it be like, yeah, like even when we're, picking out eye masks, right? That's because we don't have the answers. So I lean into those challenges and I ask all of our teams across the company to like bring your challenges to us because you have 20,000 community members who have an opinion, who love the brand and who, want to be heard from. So any moment for authenticity or vulnerability from the brand is where we actually find that we connect best with our community.
Okay. And I have, hi, I loved your insight. I'm a social media manager for a brand with a presence in 2 countries, Kenya and Germany. How can we grow this community with barriers like different languages? Well, we have to grow 2 different communities.
Yeah, that's a great question. I actually was just in Germany and we have a big community in Nigeria. Not to be the American, but I do wonder if like English can be like the common language. I think there is benefit to not separating our communities, and actually something that led us to a shift off of Geneva and onto TYB is because they were no longer supporting like the UK, which I think, but for us it wouldn't make sense to split up our communities. So it was like a natural shift for us to move onto another platform to make sure that our community can stay connected. So I wouldn't encourage like the separation. I would find a way to find the middle ground.
Yeah, I will say I'm Colombian and I used to work in Latin America and like in the Latin American market. And so there is a lot of like dual opportunities, right? Like we would do events that were in English, but then also say host the same event in Spanish. Or we would do like even just for Instagram posts, like we would post it in English and then post it in Spanish. So there's a way that you can incorporate both, like when Natalie was saying, finding that balance. So you're also not isolating like a certain part of your community who just won't understand English or can't read your post.
Yeah, I love that. As a small business owner, how do I build out the community on my own and run the business at the same time? Would you suggest I invest in a freelancer at this stage?
I would invest in an intern, whether it be for college credit or for, like not a full-time role, but somebody who is, it depends on your brand, right? Like our community definitely like leans for like, especially with our insiders, leans younger. And I'm a millennial and Grace Sophia is Gen Z, and her ability to speak, to their, to topicals as audience is like way better. So it's like, depends on what your brand is. Like if a college student can like do that, I mean, I would lean into that, or somebody literally who is like so digitally native and like completely fluent and like that's just like their bread and butter. Like I am definitely an advocate for, delegating and like offloading skills. But if that is as a founder, like something you love to do and like is your skill set and like you identify like completely and you just like want to, be in there all day, then do that. But if you find like that feels like a burden or something that's overwhelming, then maybe it is something that you delegate out.
Gotcha. Okay. And I'll take the last question, which is this question is for Amira. As a brand owner, I'd love to hear how the folklore is building its community and what the team is prioritizing. Yeah, we're all about community. I'm gonna take a lot of notes from this, and me and Entianu, who heads up our social and community, we're definitely going to chat more. But yeah, that's something that we've really rolled out this year. We created our WhatsApp community where all of the members of the folklore can go in. We share different resources, brands will chat back and forth. There's subgroups, so there's like the folklore beauty brands, there's the folklore Nigerian brands. They've been planning meetups, sharing resources. We also just post a lot of things in there, some polls. So that's one way to do it digitally. And then we've been hosting meetups. Like whenever I'm in a city, I'll say, hey, I'm in this city. We'll find a bar, we'll just do cocktails on the folklore and just allow brands to connect that way. So we've done that in LA, we've done that in a few, where else did we? Oh, we did that just in London. And then we've also been doing these things called co-working retreats, where we'll bring people to focus on a specific topic. And we did one in Lagos where we had two people come in to discuss commercialization versus creativity. And about 20 of our brands came out and we had lunch and all of those things. So really trying to find ways. We do dinners as well. So like it doesn't have to be super expensive, can be low lift things that, we're just trying to do in the key areas that we see that we have the most brands. But yeah, that's some of the ways that we're doing it. But we are coming up on time. And so I would like to thank you both, Grace Sophia and Natalie, for being here and dropping all of the amazing gems. You all have been doing an amazing job. I am also a spotty hottie. I have at least 2 or 3 products in my bathroom right now. So it's great to see how you all have been able to build this. And for all of you here, if you are interested in joining the folklore, if you are a brand or if you're like an aspiring, brand owner, we have resources for you as well. So you can just visit thefolklore.com and you can start your 14-day free trial today. And you can also follow us on Instagram at The Folklore. And anybody who is already a member of the Folklore, one thing we just dropped recently is our new referrals program. So you actually get rewards for referring other brands and retailers to join the platform. So make sure to check that out. Grace, Sophia, and Natalie, any last words? Want to follow on socials, anything like that?
No, thank you so much for having us. I always love being able to talk about community. So the fact that you guys as a platform have interest in this just also speaks to you guys and what you're building at the folklore. So thank you so much for having us.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
thank you guys so much. Maybe we can also quickly, I'll drop in like my LinkedIn, just in case people want to follow. But this is so fun. Honestly, it's really like it's fun to talk about this stuff. So thank you for having us.
Yes, of course. Thank you. And have a good rest of your day. And thanks everyone for joining us.
Thank you so much.
Bye.